They say success comes from massive action. But what if it actually starts with something much smaller? In a forgotten land where mist blanketed the fields every morning, there was a village called Redstone. And in that village lived a young blacksmith named Gotti. He was known not for his skills, but for his laziness. Gotti had dreams, enormous dreams. He wanted to craft legendary swords, the kind sung about in royal ballads. But dreams, as it turned out, were easier to forge than discipline. Each morning, the roosters would crow and the villagers would rise. Gotti? He stayed in bed. "I'll start tomorrow," he'd mutter, pulling the blanket tighter. His forge was cold more days than it was warm. Tools lay rusting, iron gathered dust. And yet, he told himself, one day a burst of energy would change everything. That one day never came. Until a cloaked traveler arrived. The man wore black from head to toe. His boots were caked in red mud, his face half hidden by a wide hat. He entered Gotti's forge without knocking, laid a shattered sword on the table, and said, "Mend it." Gotti blinked. "Why me?" "Because if you do, a gate will open, the gate to the Golden Valley, but only to those who prove worthy." The sword was no ordinary blade. Ancient etchings shimmered faintly along its edge. Gotti's heart pounded. This was his chance. This was his one day. He promised to start at dawn, but dawn came, and Gotti did not. For 7 days he made excuses. The firewood was damp, his shoulder hurt, the wind wasn't right. Each night he stared at the broken sword, guilt gnawing at his chest, but doing nothing. On the 8th day, a storm rolled in. Gotti, seeking shelter, stumbled upon a run-down hut at the edge of the woods. Inside sat an old man, stirring soup with the stump of his forearm. The man had no hands, and yet around him were tools perfectly maintained. The blades on the wall gleamed. "How do you smith with no hands?" Gotti asked. The man smiled. "Who said I still do? But once I forged the emperor's crown." They shared silence. Then the old man spoke again. "You remind me of me, talented, lazy, waiting for the right moment. But there is no right moment, only right actions, taken again and again." Gotti stared into the fire. "Want to know what saved me?" the old man asked. 7 tiny habits. Would you listen?" And Gotti, humbled by his own uselessness, nodded. The old man recited them slowly. "Wake up before the sun. Sharpen your hammer daily, even if you don't use it. Drink cold well water every morning. Write 1 line about your work each night. Sit in silence 2 minutes before lighting the forge. No wine until sundown. And always ask before sleep, 'Did I light the fire today?'" Simple, almost laughably so, but something stirred inside Gotti. These weren't tasks, they were rituals. The next morning, he woke before dawn, not out of excitement, but out of duty. He sharpened his hammer, lit the forge. The blade remained untouched that day, but he showed up. And then he showed up the next day and the one after. He wrote his failures in a small book, sat quietly before every fire, refused the village tavern's wine until dusk. Days passed, then weeks. His strikes became sharper, his grip firmer, ideas clearer. The broken sword still sat on the bench, waiting. But now, Gotti wasn't afraid of it. On the 47th day, he placed the 2 shattered pieces into the coals. He did not announce it, he just began. It took a week, sweat, burns, and frustration, but this time he didn't run. When the final hammer fell, the sword shone as if reborn. Gotti laid it on the table. The next morning, the cloaked traveler returned. "You did it," the man said, lifting the blade. "I did," Gotti replied simply. "The gate will appear to you." But Gotti didn't smile, didn't cheer. He looked at the tools on his wall, the worn pages of his journal, the fire still warm. "I think I already found it," he said. The traveler gave a knowing nod and vanished. Years passed. Gotti never became rich, But his forge never went cold again. Blades crafted by his hands found their way into stories, not because they were perfect, but because they carried the weight of patience. In the village of Redstone, they say, the boy who waited for a miracle became the man who made his own. So, now I ask you, what small habit will you start today? If this story struck something in you, leave a comment with the habit you'll try. Tap like, subscribe, and come back for more stories like this, crafted not to entertain, but to awaken something you might have forgotten. See you in the next one.